A trickle of Abib blood slid down Zora's leg. The lead flight attendant, Vanessa Whitmore, had a mean smile. "First class isn't for everyone, little girl," she said, sounding very rude. The people on the plane stopped breathing, and some started recording with their phones. But no one saw the important black man in seat 2A. He was quietly watching and already sending a message to the airline's bosses to have an urgent meeting. A 12-year-old girl felt shame. A flight attendant was Amin, and a man had the power to change everything. What happens when unfairness meets a strong person 30,000 feet up in the air? Get ready for a story about being brave, being fair, and big changes that will keep you excited. Before we read this amazing story, please tell us in the comments where you are listening from. Also, like and subscribe to join our community that shows unfair things and celebrates people who fight against them. Now come with us on this rough flight, where a smart young girl and her powerful uncle teach an entire airline a lesson they won't forget. Zora Washington was only 12 years old. She held her boarding pass tightly, checking the seat number 5 times. It said A1, first class, window seat. Her uncle, who she only knew from phone calls, had said she needed a special ticket for her first flight alone from Atlanta to San Francisco. "You deserve the best, smarty pants," he had said kindly a week before. Zora smiled, remembering that. She adjusted her backpack, full of books about airplanes and science. Even though she was young, she was taking advanced classes and had won a scholarship for a special science program in California. But even with her smart brain, the busy Atlanta airport made her feel a little scared. Her heart beat fast with a mix of excitement and worry as she walked to the special line, holding her boarding pass and student ID. The lady at the gate looked up. Her smile disappeared when she saw the young black girl. "Are you sure you're in the right line, sweetie? This is for first class and special boarding," she said in a snotty voice. Zora nodded politely. "Yes, ma'am. I have a first-class ticket." She handed over her papers, noticing how the lady looked at them much longer than she had at the white businessman before. After a very long, quiet moment, the lady gave her papers back. "All right. Enjoy your flight," she said, without any excitement. Zora walked onto the plane bridge. Her excitement wasn't as strong now because she felt a familiar feeling. It was uncomfortable being questioned in places where she didn't look like who they expected. When Zora got on the plane, the main flight attendant, Vanessa Whitmore, was waiting at the door. She was greeting passengers with fake smiles. Her blonde hair was in a perfect bun, her makeup was perfect, and her uniform was clean. She gave an older white couple a warm welcome, showing them to their seats with real excitement. But when Zora came close, Vanessa's smile froze, and her eyes looked hard. "Are you lost, dear? Economy boarding starts in about 20 minutes, she said coldly. Zora took a deep breath. "I'm in first class, seat A1, she answered, showing her pass. Vanessa barely looked at it. "This way, then," she said with a stiff hand motion, not offering to help Zora like she had helped other passengers. As Zora walked to her window seat in the front row, she felt other passengers staring. Some looked at her with curiosity. Others looked clearly unhappy. An older white woman in seat B1 squeezed her lips together and gripped her purse tightly when she saw Zora coming. A middle-aged man in the second row quietly said something about unfair advantages loud enough to be heard. Zora kept her head up, remembering her mother's words. Your dignity, self-respect, is not something to be traded away. She sat down in her seat, carefully put her backpack under the seat in front, and opened her favorite book about space science. "Is this your first time in first class?" a deep, calm voice asked from behind her. Zora turned and saw a distinguished black man about 40 years old sitting in seat 2A. He wore a very nice suit with shiny gold cufflinks. His short hair had some gray, which made him look important, but his eyes were kind and smart, which made her feel comfortable right away. "Yes, sir," Zora answered. "My uncle bought the ticket for me." The man smiled a little. "Enjoy it then. You belong here just as much as anyone." There was something in his voice, a certainty that was more than just being nice, but Zora couldn't figure it out. She smiled back and went back to her book. What Zora didn't know was that the man behind her was Dr. Malcolm Reynolds, her actual uncle. He had booked the same flight on purpose but decided not to tell her he was her uncle. Malcolm was not just any passenger. He had a special degree in airplane engineering from a famous school, had been a brave Special Forces soldier, and was rich from his own technology companies. He owned most of Skyline Airways, the airline they were flying on. Not many people knew his face because he liked to work from behind the scenes, using his power in smart ways instead of showing up in public. Through his time in the Army and in business, Malcolm had learned that people show their true selves when they think no one important is watching. The service before takeoff began. Vanessa offered champagne and orange juice to the first-class passengers. She served the white passengers first, leaving Zora for last. When she finally came to Zora, her smile was gone. "Juice?" she asked sharply. Before Zora could answer, Vanessa carelessly tipped the juice pitcher, spilling juice all over Zora's new dress, which Zora had bought especially for the trip. "Oh, how clumsy I am," Vanessa said, without sounding sorry at all. She threw a small napkin at Zora. "Clean yourself up, little girl. We can't have sticky messes in first class." The woman next to Zora quietly giggled, while other passengers pretended not to notice. Malcolm watched quietly, his face not showing any feelings, but his eyes saw everything. The situation got worse when the plane was flying high in the sky. Vanessa came back to the first-class area, giving out warm towels and taking food orders. When she got to Zora, she frowned. "Let me see your boarding pass again," she demanded loudly. Zora, confused but doing what she was told, took her pass out of her backpack. Vanessa took it, looking at it very closely, almost like she was acting. "This seat is for our special passengers," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Are you sure you shouldn't be in economy, the cheaper part of the plane?" Now the passengers were openly staring. Zora, her voice strong even though she felt ashamed, answered, "My ticket says A1, that's this seat." Vanessa's lips got tight. Well, there must be a mistake. This kind of service is meant for... She stopped, looking Zora up and down. "Our usual customers." The meaning was clear, floating in the air like the clear sky outside the windows. Malcolm's jaw tightened so little that you could barely see it. The final straw came when Zora needed to go to the bathroom. As she tried to walk past Vanessa in the narrow aisle, the flight attendant didn't try to move out of the way. Instead, when Zora tried to go forward, Vanessa suddenly moved, hitting Zora's shin, the front of her lower leg, with her foot. It might have looked like an accident, but it was clear she did it on purpose. The hit was hard enough to break the skin, leaving a small cut that started to bleed. "Oh, watch where you're going," Vanessa said roughly. "You need to be more careful in small spaces like this." Zora looked at her leg, a thin line of blood running down to her ankle, as tears of pain and shame filled her eyes. The plane became very quiet, and the air felt heavy with tension. The silence in the first-class cabin was very loud as the passengers thought about what they had just seen. Some took out their phones and quietly started recording. Others looked away, feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to get involved. A few nodded, as if they agreed with how Vanessa treated Zora, as if the young black girl deserved the shame and to be hurt. From the third row, a young Latina woman with strong eyes stood up. "Excuse me," she called, her phone already recording. "I'm Sofia Rodriguez, a law student. I want your employee ID number, please." Her voice was strong but calm. Vanessa turned, surprise on her face before it got hard. "I don't have to give it to you," she replied rudely. "Go back to your seat during service." Sophia didn't move. "Actually, according to Skyline Airways rules, you have to give your ID when asked. I've already recorded this event, including hurting a child." Passengers murmured, some supporting Sophia, others annoyed by the stop. Even with all that, Zora stayed surprisingly calm for a 12-year-old. Even though a tear ran down her cheek, she sat up straight, still showing her self-respect. She pressed a napkin against the small wound, her hand steady even though she was shaking inside. It was then that Dr. Malcolm Reynolds stood up from his seat. The cabin seemed to stop as he walked forward, his presence easily making everyone respect him. Malcolm moved with the quiet confidence of someone who was used to controlling messy situations. His army training had taught him that getting angry rarely worked. Controlling people in a strong way came from being calm. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm and clear. "This young lady needs medical help." He pointed to Zora's bleeding leg. Vanessa changed to a customer service voice as she looked at the well-dressed black man in front of her. "Sir, I'll bring a first aid kit soon. Please go back to your seat." Malcolm didn't move. "I also want your name and the captain to come to the cabin right away." Memories of his Special Forces training went through his mind. Missions where he had taken control in dangerous places without using force. The same ideas worked here. The company's cabin was just another battleground with different rules. "I'm Vanessa Whitmore, sir," she answered, her voice suggesting she was just doing him a favor. "And the captain is busy flying the plane. I'm sure any worries you have can be fixed in the right ways after we land." She thought he was just another passenger she could calm down and get rid of. "Ms. Whitmore," Malcolm said, taking a business card from his jacket. "I'm Dr. Malcolm Reynolds. I think the captain will make time." He handed her the card, which said he was a board member, but it didn't say he owned most of the company. That information was only for people who needed to know, and Vanessa didn't need to know yet. Vanessa's face changed when she read the card, but she quickly got her tough look back. "I'll see what I can do, Dr. Reynolds, but flight rules are clear about not bothering the captain." Her rude voice showed she still didn't understand how serious her mistake was. In less than 5 minutes, Captain James Parker came into the cabin. His face looked professional until he saw Malcolm. He had been with Skyline for 15 years and knew the company's mysterious main owner right away. His face turned a little pale. "Dr. Reynolds, I wasn't aware you were on board today. How can I help you?" Vanessa's eyes moved between the captain and Malcolm, a flicker of worry crossing her face for the first time. Malcolm pointed to Zora. "This young passenger has been physically hurt by your main flight attendant, Captain Parker. I have seen many times when she treated people unfairly since boarding, and it ended with this injury. I want an incident report filed right away, medical help given, and the contact information of witnesses collected." His voice was normal, but the authority in his words was clear. The captain nodded quickly. "Of course, sir, right away." He turned to Vanessa. "Ms. Whitmore, bring the first aid kit right now and then go to the back kitchen area." Vanessa froze, feeling the change in who had the power, but still not understanding how big her trouble was. "But sir, this child was causing trouble," she started, but the captain cut her off. "Now, Ms. Whitmore." His voice left no room for arguments. As Vanessa went to get the medical supplies, Malcolm knelt beside Zora, talking to her quietly so only she could hear. "You have shown amazing courage, little one. I will make sure this situation is handled properly." Zora looked at him with thanks and wonder, still not knowing that this man was her uncle, whom she had never met in person. Captain Parker went to the passengers who were recording, asking for their contact information for the investigation. Most people were happy to give it, especially after seeing how respectful the captain was to Malcolm. Sofia Rodriguez went directly to Malcolm. "Sir, I have clear videos of the whole event. This kind of unfairness is exactly why I study civil rights law." Malcolm nodded with thanks. "Your help is impressive, Ms. Rodriguez. I promise you this matter will not be ignored." When Vanessa came back with the first aid kit, her hands shook a little as she gave it to the captain instead of helping Zora herself. Her eyes kept darting towards Malcolm, a growing worry clear on her face. While the captain put an antiseptic wipe and a bandage on Zora's leg, Vanessa was quietly told to go serve in economy class for the rest of the flight. A different flight attendant, Letitia Johnson, with a kind look, took over the first-class cabin. Captain Parker pulled Malcolm aside before going back to the cockpit. "Dr. Reynolds, I want to personally say sorry for this event. I promise you, it does not show what Skyline stands for." Malcolm's face stayed calm. "We will talk about the company's deeper values another time, Captain. For now, I will need copies of all incident reports and crew lists when we land." The rest of the flight was filled with a clear feeling of tension. Letitia Johnson gave good service to all passengers, making sure Zora was especially comfortable. Malcolm stayed in his seat, making quiet phone calls that seemed normal to most people, but they weren't. "Jennifer, it's Malcolm. I need you to find everything we have on a main flight attendant named Vanessa Whitmore. Yes, it's urgent. Also, arrange for our company's public relations and legal teams to meet us in San Francisco. No, not just one person. I want Michaela Chen from public relations and Marcus Jefferson himself." He spoke in low, calm tones, giving no hint of the big company change he was starting. To understand how much power Malcolm Reynolds had, we need to go back 5 years. At that time, Skyline Airways was almost out of business. The airline business was having trouble with rising fuel costs and fewer people traveling after the pandemic. Malcolm, who was already rich from his tech companies, saw not just a chance to make money but a way to change an industry that often had problems with unfair treatment. By buying shares and investing smartly, at first secretly to avoid raising prices, Malcolm got a 42% share of Skyline Airways. Along with working with other investors who believed in treating people fairly, he actually controlled how the company was run. However, he chose to stay hidden, putting trusted friends in important jobs while he guided the company's rules from his seat on the board. Only a few top people knew how much power he had. Jennifer Hayes, the chief operating officer of Skyline, was one of his most trusted friends. As a black woman who had faced unfair treatment in the airline industry for 20 years, she shared Malcolm's goal of making big changes to the company. His call made her act right away. In minutes, she was looking through Vanessa Whitmore's 3 earlier complaints about unfair treatment filed by minority passengers in the last 18 months, she mumbled, looking through the digital records, all marked as solved with no action by Douglas Parker, head of flight operations. She made a note to check how Parker had handled similar complaints. Jennifer kept looking, finding a pattern that would not have been clear without looking specifically for it. Every complaint against Whitmore had been systematically played down, with passengers' worries dismissed as misunderstandings or overreactions. When the plane landed in San Francisco, passengers were surprised to hear an announcement asking them to stay seated for a moment. A group of people in serious business clothes boarded the plane. Michaela Chen, Skyline's head of public relations, first went to Captain Parker, speaking quietly. Another person from the team quietly took Vanessa to a private room at the airport. As the first-class passengers started to leave the plane, distinguished black man in a tailored suit greeted Malcolm with a handshake that showed both professional respect and personal friendship. "Everything ready?" Malcolm asked. Marcus Jefferson, Skyline's head lawyer and Malcolm's old friend from law school, nodded. "The car is waiting. Jennifer has already put together the first evidence." As they got ready to leave, Malcolm turned to Zora. "Would you come with me, please? I've arranged for good medical care for your leg." Zora, surprised but nodding, picked up her things. As the three left, Michaela Chen was dealing with the growing storm on social media. Videos recorded by several passengers were starting to spread, with the hashtag Dutch Unfairness on Skyline already being very popular. In one video that showed Vanessa was clearly wrong, you could clearly see her blocking Zora's way and kicking her, on purpose, which caused the injury. At Skyline's main offices in Chicago, the CEO, Richard Tanner, was answering calls from worried board members. "Yes, William, I understand the possible public relations problems," he told William Montgomery, a big investor who liked things to stay the same. "But this seems like just one small event that is being made too big. We will say sorry in a normal way, offer some money to the family and have a training class for the flight crew." What Tanner didn't understand was that this was not a normal event, and Malcolm Reynolds was not interested in just fixing a small problem for the company. The fancy black Bentley car drove smoothly through the streets of San Francisco, taking Malcolm, Marcus, and Zora to Malcolm's home. Inside the car, Zora finally asked the question she had been thinking about since the airport. "Sir, why are you helping me? And how do you have so much power with the airline?" Malcolm looked at Marcus, then turned to Zora with a warm smile. Because, Zora Washington, I am your Uncle Malcolm. Zora's eyes opened wide in surprise. But my Uncle Malcolm lives in California. He was going to send someone to pick me up at the airport. Her voice faded as she understood. You are him. You were on the plane the whole time. Malcolm nodded. I wanted to see how my niece would handle her first flight alone. I didn't expect to see such terrible behavior from the airline I partly own. Zora thought about the information, staying surprisingly calm for a 12-year-old. You own Skyline Airways? 42%, Malcolm confirmed. Enough to make big changes when needed, and after today, changes are very much needed. The car pulled into the driveway of an impressive modern house with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. Inside, a private doctor was waiting to properly check Zora's injury. While Malcolm and Marcus went to a home office with special technology and security, the airline's board was already starting to act. Montgomery and his group are pushing for a very small reaction, calling it one small event instead of a problem with the whole system, Marcus reported, checking messages on his tablet. Malcolm's face hardened. They have been calling these small events for decades. It's time they understood they are not small at all. That night, as the company started to move, William Montgomery, who owned 7% of Skyline, made many phone calls to create a group against what he called Reynolds's overreaction. Meanwhile, Jennifer kept investigating, finding even more worrying patterns. Douglas Parker, the head of flight operations, had many complaints against him for creating a bad work environment for women and minorities. There were secret agreements going back more than 10 years. The CEO, Richard Tanner, had personally approved every promotion even with these warning signs. At 7:30 the next morning, Malcolm walked into Skyline's main offices in Chicago, causing a stir among employees who rarely saw the majority owner in person. In the meeting room, the tension was very strong. Tanner tried to control the meeting, but Malcolm took over with a calmness that hid the big company change he was about to cause. He showed information that minority passengers' complaints were ignored 3 times more often than white passengers' complaints. Inside emails showed that Parker had given clear instructions to play down complaints that could make trouble for the flight crew. For 5 years, I have been tracking unfair treatment data at this airline, waiting to see if the leaders would fix these problems without me stepping in, Malcolm said. For 5 years, this board has received made-up reports saying things were getting better, while the real experiences of passengers of color haven't changed or have gotten worse. His words were powerful, making it clear he would not accept any more excuses. The biggest moment happened at a press conference at Skyline's main office. Instead of Malcolm, Zora took the stage. 3 days ago, I got on a Skyline Airways flight from Atlanta to San Francisco. It was my first time flying alone, and I was excited because my uncle had bought me a first-class ticket, she began, her voice steady, as she told the story clearly and exactly. What happened to me happens to people who look like me every day, in airports, stores, and schools. Most of the time, there are no cameras recording. Most of the time, there is no one with power watching. Most of the time, nothing changes. The room was completely silent as Zora continued. My uncle taught me that with power comes responsibility. He also taught me that real change doesn't come from punishing one person, but from fixing broken systems. She looked at Montgomery and his group. I don't want anyone to lose their job because of what happened to me. I want everyone to do their job better because of what happened to me. Her words were incredibly powerful and sad, impossible to dismiss as just company talk or an overreaction. In the days that followed, Malcolm's changes happened quickly. Jennifer Hayes, who was now being considered for CEO, led the transformation. A special group was created to review complaints about unfair treatment. Training programs were redone and a new list of passenger rights was put in place. Skyline's company culture began to change, valuing responsibility and respect as very important rules. 6 months later, Skyline Airways was like new. Complaints about unfair treatment dropped by 78%, and passengers were happier than ever before. Zora, now 13, became a strong speaker, talking in schools about passenger rights and company responsibility. Malcolm, as the head of the board, continued to guide the long-term plan, while Jennifer led the daily work. This story is not just about something that happened on a plane. It's about the power of being smart and patient, and the courage of a young girl to change a whole industry. Malcolm could have stepped in right away, but he chose to wait, collecting proof to attack the root of the problem. Zora, with her unbroken self-respect, showed that being brave has no age. Together they proved that being fair isn't about getting revenge, but about creating systems where unfair things can't easily happen again. What about you? If you were Malcolm, would you have used your power to punish those responsible directly or to push for big changes in the whole system? What inspired you most? Zora's bravery in facing the shame, or Malcolm's smart patience to change Skyline? Tell us what you think in the comments and where you are listening from. If this story touched you, like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to remember that one person with courage and a plan can change the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey of fairness and change.